If you're a solopreneur, you wear all the hats in your business. You're the CEO, the Chief Marketing Officer, the Chief Financial Officer, the Chief Technology Officer, the Chief Human Resource Officer. You are also the Chief Strategy Officer for your organization. As someone who has been a CSO for a large organization, I think it's one of the most important roles that you can play as the leader. Today, I'm going to share with you the easiest way for you to lead the strategic direction of your business. And you know what? If you plot this strategy correctly, you will work less and earn more. Guaranteed. Hi, I'm Jennifer Drago, and on the Peak to Profit channel, we help solopreneurs get laser focused on their goals so that they can grow their businesses and scale their businesses. And we do this using the Peak framework, which is exactly what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to teach you a simple framework that you can repeat over and over again in your own business to move your business forward. And it's the PEAK framework. PEAK is an acronym: planning, execution, analysis, and knowledge. So let's go through each one of those phases. So the first thing is planning. Benjamin Franklin once said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You have to have a plan in place, but that starts with a vision of where you want to move your organization toward in the future. I call it a vision narrative. So to craft a vision narrative, I've created a specific video that I'm going to link here, but then it's also in the show notes below, and there's also a freebie on my website that I encourage you to download. It asks all the specific questions. It's a step-by-step guide to create a vision narrative for your business. A vision narrative, quite simply, is a set of 6 to 10 statements that describe in very accurate detail what your organization is going to look like 3 to 5 years in the future. And by doing that, you then have a destination that you can craft a roadmap toward. So just like if you were going on a road trip, you wouldn't leave likely unless you knew exactly where you were headed. And then you would map it before you went so you would have a direction to get there. Now, might you need to stop for gas or stop to sleep or stop to eat at places you didn't anticipate? Absolutely, but you're still moving in the general direction of your destination. That's what a vision narrative provides, your destination. Once you know where you're headed, you want to think about what your roadmap needs to look like for the coming 4 quarters ahead. So you need to think of 3 to 4 strategic goals that you could work on. They need to be SMART goals. And remember, SMART stands for specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-limited. So they're going to have a deadline. They're going to be measurable as much as possible. They're going to be specific. They're going to be action-oriented, so they'll have a verb in them. They'll probably start with a verb. And they're going to be realistic, meaning I can accomplish this in the next 4 quarters. Then under those 3 to 4 strategic goals that you set for yourself to move toward that roadmap, you want to create 2 to 3 tactics underneath that are going to be taking that big goal and chunking it down into smaller steps. Those are things then you're going to schedule out in each of the forthcoming quarters. That's where the time limitation comes in. You're going to have a deadline over each quarter of what you're going to accomplish. So that's the P in the PEAK formula. And honestly, that's at least half the work there. And you should be so proud of yourself when you get to this point, because Zig Ziglar, who's a famous motivational and business author, has said that a goal properly crafted is half accomplished or half achieved. The next step in the PEAK framework is E, and that's execution. Just like setting goals is really important, you can't just set them and put them on a shelf or put them in a drawer, put them in a file folder. You have to look at them all the time and be executing on them every single week. In fact, once you know what you have to accomplish in a quarter, it's then easier to kind of break that into weekly goals that you need to accomplish. You want to set aside 10 to 20% of your time each week to work on things that are strategic. So every day you're going to do all the operational tasks, you're going to answer the emails and do the social media posts and interact with your clients, sell your products, but 10 to 20% of your work hours every week, you should be focused on those strategic initiatives and the strategic goals. Remember the Pareto Principle that says 80% of your outcomes, of your results, are going to come from 20% of your inputs. So remember to set aside that 20% of your time, guard it with your life and time block it so that you can work on your strategic objectives. Couple more tips about execution. So execution is really where you make the best use of your time. And I mentioned time blocking, but I do believe when you're working on your strategic work that it should be in big chunks of time. So a half a day, a full day, whatever time you're able to set aside in a given week, do it all at one time or maybe in 2 blocks at most, because you really want to minimize your distractions and keep focus on that strategy. Just like in all your work, you want to batch the work that you're able to. So when I'm creating videos, I do them multiple videos on one day. When I write, I do a lot of writing on one day. When I post and plan my social media for the week, I do that all at one time. So try to batch as much as you can. Try to systematize as much as you can in your business. Streamline and systematize. Write out your processes. These are all key things that help in your long-term execution and also help when you have others in your business because you can hand off big chunks of things to others who are capable of doing them. So that's execution, really important part of the peak formula. Analysis is really keeping track of your results all the time and knowing how you're doing at a glance. And we do that through dashboards. I like to have a strategic dashboard that has all those goals and timelines and quarters right on one page so I can look at it at a glance. But then I also like to have an operational dashboard that tells me what were my sales for the month, what are my revenue numbers for the month, my expenses, how many followers do I have now, how many are on my email list, whatever metrics you are monitoring, all in one place, because then you can easily spot trends. And remember, one of the key things that you're doing here is you're trying to place your efforts where they're going to have maximum results. And so if you're working on your strategic goals and you see a jump in followers or jump in sales, you're going to know that that's directly related to the actions that you took just in the weeks before. Analysis is the A in the peak formula. And the last one is knowledge, and it's really integration of knowledge. So you should always be consuming new knowledge that helps you grow your business and learn your business. So video like this, but be really careful in your consumption because you don't want it to be procrastination for other work that you should be doing. Sean McCabe, he's an author and social media influencer, and he once said, create more content than you consume. I think that's a great lesson that we should all focus on, is just making sure that we don't overconsume content. But honestly, integration of knowledge in the peak formula is also taking the knowledge that you learned in the analysis step and in the execution step, and then adjusting your goals in the coming quarter. Remember, you're still on that roadmap. You're just into the next quarter on that roadmap. And so if you had your goals lined out in a certain way and you realize that one is actually not moving the needle as much as you thought, you're able to adjust it in that quarter moving forward. So you don't need to stick with goals that aren't necessarily serving you or tactics that aren't serving you. You always want to be adjusting and moving forward. So as I described, the peak framework is actually a repeatable cycle. It's intended that at the end of each quarter, you're adjusting your goals and starting in P again, going into the next quarter, and then working through the execution analysis and knowledge integration. So that is the peak framework in a nutshell. To help you remember that, I've created a freebie, which I'll link in my bio and in the show notes below. And I hope while you're on the website that you will also subscribe to our weekly newsletter so you will always be informed about new content that is available. Thanks so much for your time today. We'll see you next week.